lot to cover this week, so I want to just start by saying everything that I talk about today can be found in writing and in video format on my Clubhouse page. The Clubhouse URL is KarenCurryParker.club. So go there. You can get access to the written version of this report, video version of this report, and all kinds of other really amazing, cool things. Be sure to, while you're here on Clubhouse, if you haven't already joined our Quantum Human Design Club, join us so that you don't miss out on any of the things we offer as we continue to grow and get out of the doldrums of the summer months, which I don't know how it is for you guys, but my summer is often spent bridging between two worlds because I've got a kid home still full-time all summer. And honestly, I love summer so much because she's one of my favorite people to hang out with. And so I try to soak up as much time as I can because she still likes me. And hopefully she'll continue to like me as the years go on. But, you know, I will certainly say that as a parent of a 30-year-old child and a 12-year-old child and a bunch of kids in between age range-wise, I'm sure aware and conscious of how quickly that time goes. So once we get through the doldrums of the summer, we have big plans to kick things up in our club and to begin to offer you guys much more resources and places where we can connect and be in community with each other, talking about human design. Speaking of being in community with each other, our second annual International Human Design Conference is coming up September 10th through the 12th. Live in Colorado Springs, but also streaming online all around the world. And it's an incredible honor this year to have, first of all, Clorinda Mann coming on Friday night to do the keynote talk. And she's going to be sharing some really groundbreaking information that she's been really contributing to the world of astrology. She's going to be talking about astrology, human design, and the design, if you will, of slavery and racism and things that we can do, that are astrological themes that we're facing as we move forward in building a world of equitable, just, sustainable, abundant peace. In addition to Clorinda coming, we've got Richard Rudd, who's going to be doing an amazing presentation on creativity. Rosie Aronson is coming. Kim Gould is going to come and talk about the feminine archetypes in human design. Brynja Magnuson is going to be coming and talking about incarnation crosses. Evelyn Levinson is going to be there talking about projectors. Amber Clements is going to be there talking about reflectors. Our own Betsy Batista is going to be leading a quantum alignment system session on Sunday mornings. She's going to be tapping on quantum consciousness activation. We have a round table where we're going to be talking about disrupting the world of business and the motivators and the drivers in business. And we're going to be exploring how do we do business collaboratively in a new world with a new economy. And we're going to start, at least I'm going to start unpacking a little bit of a treatise that I want to explore with all of you over the course of the next year. I want to be looking at human design as a tool to disrupt the dark side of capitalism. So that's going to be where I'm going to be focusing some of my own thinking and teaching next year. And we'll be talking about that a little bit at conference as well. So be sure to join us. If you want to get more information about conference, just go to our conference page. It's humandesignconference.com. That's pretty straight up. And also, Kristen, is there a link to that on the Clubhouse page too?
There is. Yes, there's an image there. You can just click right on the image you see. It'll take you there.
Awesome. See? Fast, quick, and easy. So you don't even have to remember that. Just go KarenCurryParker.club and you'll have everything you need. So, all right. So without further ado, let's get started because we've got a lot to cover this week, and I'm hoping to be able to take at least a couple of questions this week. There is a lot going on, and really honestly, there's a potential here for us to feel kind of weary and bored with old arguments and old dialogues and old conversations that seemingly are getting tedious and are really probably starting to feel like we're listening to a song on repeat. So if you're looking at the world and kind of going, gosh, are we ever going to stop talking about this, fighting about this, talking about this, fighting about this? That's part of what we're looking at as we move into this cycle that we're in with the celestial weather. We're certainly in the thick of things. And, part of what's going on is we've got yet one more planet, Uranus, moving into a retrograde cycle starting on Thursday. And that's giving us right now a grand total of 5 planets sitting in a retrograde cycle. And of course, anytime we get retrograde cycles, it's really an invitation for us to sort of to stop and take stock of our lives. So we are really being invited by the planets to pause, to really go inward. A retrograde cycle gives us a little bit of an opportunity for a redo. So when planets go retrograde, they don't actually go backwards. It just, the movement, how they move in the sky just looks as if they're going backwards, so to speak. And energetically, the retrograde cycles really give us a chance to explore what has happened, to really contemplate, especially through the lens of human design and the gates that get highlighted through retrograde cycles, to really contemplate what's going on, where are we at, what themes are we exploring, what could we do differently if we got an opportunity to redo what's come before. And as we can sort of bring to a completion this retrograde cycle, we absolutely get the opportunity to kind of revisit what's happened before through a new lens with a new perspective. So, as I said, as of this Thursday, we've got 5 planets in a retrograde cycle. We've got Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Pluto, and Uranus. And, these are all what I like to consider the outer planets. So that means these planets sort of set up the outline for our current personal and our collective narrative. They're really holding the plot outline in place. I like to think of the outer planets as kind of the scaffolding of the building, or the framework of the building, not so much the scaffolding. This is the framework. And of course, these planets are giving us our marching orders in terms of what we need to focus our attention on so that we can consciously evolve and fulfill the full potential of our human story. Most of these planets are going to go direct by the end of October, with the exception of Neptune, which goes direct in December, and Uranus goes direct in January of 2020. So what does that mean for us? If you have been listening to my weekly energy reports for the last few months, probably since about March of this year, speaking of being on repeat, I have been saying over and over again, we're in a cycle where we are literally being called by the planets to really explore the stories we're telling ourselves about who we are. And these are stories, not just your personal stories, but our collective stories. Who are we really embodying? What identities are we embracing? What limiting stories might we be telling? What karmic stories are we stuck in? It is an opportunity right now, especially until the end of October, for us to really consciously craft for ourselves a story that is the true story of who we really are. And, I literally have been saying to people for months, do this as a creative writing assignment right now. This isn't just think about it and contemplate it. I want you to literally get your pen and paper out, or if you're not verbally inclined, for you to get, create an art project, if you will, around this process of writing or creating a narrative that really speaks to the true story of who we are. So in the midst of this story writing process, we're in the middle of a deep dive, and this deep dive is really inviting us to explore not so much the how of how we untangle ourselves from the limitations and the karmic patterns. We're just beginning the process of retraining our brain, if you will, to start thinking about these stories through a different lens, from a different perspective, to begin the process of deepening and building stronger neural pathways that go against perhaps the old limitations that we thought were true, that we've maybe outgrown. It's not really just, a life review that we're going through. It's really an opportunity to begin building the energy of a narrative that's big enough and juicy enough and powerful enough to call us forward. So if we do the work now, right now in this opening that the planets are giving us, we're being given an opportunity to build a framework that's going to support us in being sustainable, equitable, to live with justice, peace, and abundance. And, I recommend, and this is going to sound so boring, but do it anyway, recommend rereading that story every day, even if you get it memorized. In fact, I want you to memorize it, because here's the thing about stories and repetition, and particularly repetitive stories. Repetitive stories give us a cadence. These key elements that are incorporated into our stories anchor us. And the thing that's so important about having a consistent pattern of a story that you have memorized, that you can feel sort of the cadence of that story on a cellular level, means that you're so habituated in this new story, this new true story that you've been crafting and really working towards your whole life, that when you get so habituated in that story, you don't forget who you are, what you're here to do, and that anchor of being so deeply habituated in that story keeps you grounded in who you are and what you're here to do, no matter what's happening around you. You don't lose your focus. You don't get distracted. You don't forget, and you stay rooted in that story. This, to me, is probably the most essential skill set we need to cultivate right now, because if we look at the planets, and if we're honest about what the planets are telling us, we're not done. We know this now. It's 2022, and we're knee deep in it, right? We're not done with this cycle of disruption, of upheaval that Uranus and Taurus have been bringing us. We've got like another 5 years, and our outcome at the end of the cycle is going to be dependent on our ability to stay true to who we are, to know who we are, and to know what we're here to do, and to not waver, to not shift off of that. All right, so let's shift our focus now a little bit and look at the planet Uranus, and specifically what the transit of Uranus in Taurus really means for us. So Uranus started transiting in Taurus March 6th of 2019. It stays there until July the 7th, 2025. So this is a really powerful cycle of destruction and reconstruction. It's like Kali, kind of the archetype of Kali. So the destruction of Uranus and the reconstruction that Uranus promises once it's done, laying flat the landscape and giving us new ground upon which to build. The cycle is really about setting the stage for us to really implement some massive collective and personal transformation. So the energy of Uranus is associated with innovation, revolution, rebellion, which, by the way, is the immature expression of revolution. Rebellion is reactive, revolution is deliberate. Liberation and freedom. So the thing that's important to understand about Uranus is that Uranus brings transformation in unexpected, I like to say, rug pulling events, meaning you're standing on the ground and all of a sudden the rug gets pulled out from under you. And these disruptions and these sort of unexpected twists and turns in the plot line really are about sort of demolishing what no longer serves us. Uranus comes along and says, oh, you've built these institutions around the idea that only certain people are valued and other people are not. Well, that's not right. Boom, let's take this down. Oh, you've built this system around educating 1/3 of the population, and 2/3 of the population really aren't going to get their educational needs met. That's not right. Boom, let's take that down. And so Uranus, sort of without pulling any punches other than being blatantly honest and sort of blatantly destructive for the sake of recreation, brings us the potential for evolution and radical change. I like to think of Uranus as being the great cosmic catalyst who serves to bring us into alignment with the cosmic plan. But, as you can see, if you've been living on this planet for the past few years, that, Uranus and the energy of Uranus can certainly be profoundly disruptive as part of its path to transformation. But here's what Uranus invites us to do. Uranus really invites us to trust in the divine unfolding of the plan. If we roll with the flow of Uranus and recognize that the energy of Uranus is deliberately even though it doesn't feel like it sometimes, removing worn out ideas, structures, and thought forms that are holding us back, it actually creates space for momentum and progress. So the mature influence of Uranus can bring about deep changes that serve to better the way in which we organize ourselves collectively. But if we're going to reap the gifts of Uranus or a Uranian cycle, we have to have a deep sense of faith, a trust in the cosmic plan, and going back to the importance of your narrative, a knowledge of our authentic selves. So you have to know your touch points and your anchors to hold you steady during a Uranian cycle, because the ground beneath us is going to shift and shake for a while until the path is cleared for us to take the next right steps. And we can't panic, because if you panic in the face of Uranian events, you run the risk of setting off a series of immature reactive responses that are actually only going to increase the chaos and the turmoil. Now, that's Uranus all by itself. That's not Uranus in Taurus. If we look at Taurus, or the energy of Taurus, Taurus is about our grounding. The energy of Taurus is actually deeply grounded. It gives us the drive to take action and implement ideas and innovations, but not in a sort of serendipitous way. It's very, very deliberate. Taurus is the sign of the bull, right? It's the archetype of sort of pushing through with strength, and that strength isn't brute force. That strength is your connection to your narrative about who you are. Taurus rules finances, earnings, banking, budgets, money, and material resources. So with Venus as its ruler, it's also the influence of value systems, morals, values, security, physical possessions, personal self-worth, and talents, attitudes, and life force energy. So it's really that kind of primal sort of root chakra kind of energy that is our Taurus. That's sort of our orientation with Taurus energy. So, with Uranus retrograding, and it retrogrades in the gate 2, the gate of allowing, and then later on in the retrograde cycle, it moves to the gate 24, the gate of blessings. We're really asking ourselves, how much do we value ourselves? That also goes back to your narrative, by the way, because if you're telling yourself a story that you're not worthy, rewrite that one, please, as fast as you can. So really we're being asked, how much do we value ourselves? Is our sense of self-worth expanding what we're willing to allow ourselves to receive? Or is our sense of value causing us to settle for less than what we want or deserve? So that's our big exploration in the beginning of this Uranus retrograde cycle. We're really looking at, what am I willing to receive? Is it big enough? Is it worthy of me? Is my self-worth anchoring me in the openness to allow myself everything I need, all the good that I deserve to fulfill my purpose? Of course, because this is retrograde energy, we're basically reviewing the last forward station of Uranus that started on January the 14th of this year, and of course ends this Wednesday. And we're really looking at what's happened from then until now. And we're looking at how these events of the last year, basically the first part of this year, how have these events shaped us? And obviously, how have they shaped us in the context of our personal narrative, and in particular, our personal narrative around our worth. So, some questions that I really encourage you to explore from now until January, and certainly from now until October, is, how have you grown in your life since January? What's new in your life, and how has it changed you? What in your life is in need of change? And what do you need to surrender to create more flow and more alignment? Now, I do have one big concern. You won't hear me talk about concerns a lot, because I really do think that the world is pretty amazing, and the evolution of our planet is, in its weird and sometimes multifaceted way, moving us forward towards a world of peace and equity and justice and abundance and sustainability, even though it doesn't look like it right now. My one big concern about Uranus highlighting the gate 2 is that the gate 2 is often associated with money, especially sharing or distributing or managing money. And, I think when we look at the big picture and we look at Uranus highlighting Taurus and we look at this retrograde cycle, I mean, we're definitely looking at, what serious work do we need to do around the economics of a Uranian upheaval. So this brings into light the theme of money, giving and receiving, working for it and managing it, and making sure also that we're sharing it equitably. So I'm telling everybody right now, between now and January, certainly spend wisely, watch the financial world carefully, and be patient as we move through this financial cycle. The beautiful part about the Gate 2 is in its highest expression, it really is the energy of recognizing that everyone deserves support by virtue of their existence. That your support is not limited to who you know, your education, your status in society. What the chart itself shows us is that we all are designed to be supported fully in every way necessary for us to fully express the truth of who we are. But that 2 energy is sort of, it's a receptive energy. It's actually the most yin of all the hexagrams in the chart. It's yin yin, and it's really asking us, what are we willing to give? What are we willing to share for those of us who have more than enough? It's asking us to invite an exploration around values and what we consider to be valuable and who is worthy of being supported. And certainly I would say, in the context of an economy that feels a little potentially uncertain, in the context, I'll just share this with you, and this, I find this really concerning, and this is a little political, and some of you may hang up on me, but one of my daughters, my middle daughter, lives in Austin, Texas, and Texas right now is going through a tremendously horrifying cycle with COVID. I don't think the news is actually doing it justice, and everyone is sick. And my daughter has known already 3 people who have had breakthrough infections of COVID, even though they were fully vaccinated with the Delta, and it's all the Delta variant. And this week she got sick. And she works a minimum wage job. She works as a barista at a coffee shop because she's an artist. And she had to take off work. She chose to take off work because she was sick and she was concerned that she might have COVID because several of her friends got COVID. And she didn't want to infect anybody or spread anything. So she stayed home waiting for the results of a COVID test. And she lost a whole week of wages. Now, that might seem like nothing for some of us, but for some of us, that's a big, big deal. That means next month not being able to make rent. And, if we're looking at this through the lens of policy and how do we stop a pandemic and how do we take care of each other, I think this is an interesting place for us to collectively explore. How do we best support each other so that we can make choices to keep each other healthy? And of course, the taking care of each other, the me versus the we thing is the big dialogue right now, and certainly is the big dialogue that is highlighted a lot in this Uranian cycle, because Uranus asks us, who is the me within the we, and asks us to explore the theme of freedom versus obligation. And and this, of course, mixed in with this theme of the Gate 2 and potentially with this theme of money, I find this to be a little bit of an interesting place for us to be watching. What decisions are we going to be making around supporting and nurturing and taking care of each other as we redefine the health of our economy, the health of our body, and also, of course, defining what does it mean to be economically successful. In the highest expression, of course, of the Gate 2, we're all positioned to receive everything we need to fulfill our individual purpose. This is a generous energy, and it has the root, at its root is the idea that every human being is precious, and certainly challenges us to let ourselves allow all the good that is coming to us and to use our own blessings to increase and expand the blessings of others. So, I predict that as soon as we continue to move away from short-sighted economic movements and the short-sighted economic movement of capitalism and consequent materialism, and we continue to grow a new quantum economy, we're going to continue to live into the idea, to quote the late Paul Wellstone, we all do better when we all do better. So one more aspect that we have to look at that may be making things a little bit more challenging is Uranus squaring Saturn. And Uranus squares Saturn for most of 2021. So this is also kind of an interesting aspect that really pushes us again into this conflict between freedom versus obligation, freedom versus boundaries in our daily life. And of course, that's personal and it's also collective. And so, we're really being invited to explore in the context of our relationships, how much freedom do I have versus how much is the way that I behave impacting my relationship and others. So here's the deal. This is the big main point that I want to really impart here. If we lose our connection to our right place in the world and we falter because we doubt our value, we put ourselves at risk for overcompensating with ego. Think about that for a minute. I'm going to say that again because I think it's really, really probably the crux of a lot of the conflict that we see on the planet right now. When we lose our connection to our right place in the world and we falter because we doubt our value, we put ourselves at risk for overcompensating with ego. If you think that you are somehow less than in any way, then we start to make choices that are out of integrity with our value and who we truly are. We start to make choices in an attempt to overcompensate for our perception of our lack. And when we're overcompensating for our perception of lack, it causes us to discount the value of not only ourselves, but also the value and the worth of others. And that causes us to become competitive and rebellious. And we fail to take into account the true impact of our actions on ourselves and obviously others. So the root of resilience in the world is tied to our self-worth. And actually, I would say the root of not just resilience, but the root of sustainability is tied to our self-worth. The more you understand the unique, vital, and irreplaceable role that you play in the cosmic plan, the more sustainable you become. And the more you naturally act not only for your own good, but in service to the whole. Without martyrdom. It's not martyrdom. It's expansive. It's you getting everything you need so that your cup is overflowing into your saucer and your saucer is brimming and you give from the saucer. That's the nature of what we're learning. How do we fill our cup so full? How do we hold our values so deeply that our cups runneth over into the saucer and we can turn around then and pour what we have in the saucer into the cups of others until their cup is running over and they turn around and give and pour from their saucer until someone else's cup is running over and so on and so forth and so on and so forth until we hit critical mass. So these are big collective and personal contemplations. And these contemplations really have the ability, when mastered, to dramatically accelerate the manifestation of a sustainable, peaceful, just, equitable, abundant world. Okay? That's our task. Take care of yourself, nurture yourself, love yourself, value yourself, find your right place, fill your cup to overflowing, and then turn around and share. And the more we can do that, the more we move ourselves, the more we accelerate the movement towards a world where we don't wake up every morning worrying about everybody else on the planet, including our own children. All right, this week, the sun, starting on Tuesday, highlights the gate 29, the gate of devotion in quantum human design. This energy, which can seem like willpower, is actually the enduring energy that we cultivate when we commit to something. So much like the Olympic athlete, this is when I teach human design, I talk about this whole stream of energy being like the Olympic athlete. So much like the Olympic athlete, this stream of energy in the chart shows us that when we are devoted, when we show up daily for the work of creating what we want in the world, then we have the power to change the story we tell about what's possible. So sometimes the work is mundane, right? It's washing the dishes or, doing the laundry and in the name of taking care of the people we love, right? Sometimes the work is mundane, like reading your darn story to yourself over and over again, even though you'd rather be doing something else. Sometimes the work is mundane, like coming in and lighting a candle and setting your intentions on a daily basis and holding those intentions, even if you can't see the evidence yet that what you're intending is coming true. This is the same stream of energy where world-breaking records that are the result of devotion and commitment push the limits on what we think is possible. Devotion changes the narrative by expanding on what we think is possible. So if you think about, metaphorically, the Olympic athlete, right? They start training at a very early age. They often eschew the comforts of regular living. They're not hanging out watching Netflix, eating Cheetos. They're up at 5, hitting the skating rink, working hard for 4 or 5 hours, having breakfast, homeschooling, going back to the ice, working until they fall asleep at night. They have injuries. They need massages. They're tense. They're tight. They're risking their bodies, pushing the edges and the limits. And it's that daily practice of showing up and doing the work that strengthens their body, that deepens their capacity to express who they are. And ultimately, if they go to the Olympics and let's say they break the world record, right? What's the first thing they do? They come home and they get on the Wheaties box, right? You get to be a part of the cultural narrative, right? You begin to change the story of what's possible. We didn't think a 4-minute mile was possible until somebody who was devoted enough to keep practicing actually broke the 4-minute mile mark, right? And now we know people can run 4 minutes, can run a mile in 4 minutes or less. I still don't know how they do that, but they can. And we know that's possible because somebody broke that boundary, that edge of that old limitation and changed the story of humanity. This is the potential of devotion. Devotion can change the story of humanity. So we're mastering the ability to committing to the right thing, to know that your perseverance and determination changes the narrative of the world, and it shows people what's possible. Devotion sets the tone for the direction that your life takes you. So this week, you really need to be mindful of asking yourself, what are you really committed to? Are you saying yes to the things that you really want to be saying yes to? Are you saying too many yeses? Are you overcommitted because you're trying to prove your value to others? It's also a great week to find joy in the mundane, to really discover the beauty of the repetition of acts, the beauty of the repetition of rituals, and to commit on a daily basis to help build the framework for growth and transformation by being devoted in your practice of anchoring in your cells the true story of who you really are. The earth grounds us in the gate 30, the gate of passion. So remember, whatever's in the earth is what we need to have in place in order to fulfill the call that the sun gives us each week. So we can't devote or commit to something if we don't feel passionately about it. It's hard to cultivate joy in the daily repetition that devotion can represent if it isn't rooted in something that fires you up, right? If you're devoting to a job you hate, unless you can find some bigger arching thing that can fire you up beyond your job, it's going to be very hard to be devoted to the work of your work. So, we're really learning to cultivate or to be able to sustain and sustain a dream, cultivate an intention, hold a vision, and to be able to hold it until we bring it into form so that we can inspire others with the power of our dream and inspire passion in the world. So the bottom line here is, if you're trying to commit and devote yourself to something you don't really feel passionately about, it's going to be hard to cultivate the energy to sustain the daily grind of your devotion. So I really want us all to start this week with an exploration of what sparks the fire of your soul. What sparks your creative essence first? And then once you find that spark, then get to work transforming that spark into form. And don't do it backwards. Don't devote and then look for the spark later. Find the spark first and then devote. So I want to also really encourage you this week to be mindful again that you commit to the right thing and that you don't burn yourself out, because the 30 is also a burnout marker in the chart. And if you're devoting yourself to something you're not passionate about, you also run the risk, ultimately, of burning yourself out. So, gentle reminder that slow and steady wins the race. Take good care of yourselves. You are designed to say yes to the things you want to say yes to. Say no to the things you want to say no to. And don't waffle on that. Don't waffle on that, because every time we say yes when we want to say no, or no when we want to say yes, it's not just you don't get to do what you want to do. You actually put yourself at risk for being burned out and experiencing a breach in integrity, including physical health and wellness. And if you want to hear more about that, you can go to TED.com and watch my TED Talk there about the real reason why we burn out and how it has nothing to do with a bad job or not making enough money. So that's it. That's all I got for you this week. Lots of stuff going on. Lots and lots of, I don't know, this is a pretty intense cycle. I mean, I think this Friday is my birthday. I feel like I've been on this planet for a very long time. And it's definitely been a very interesting couple of years. And I'm very much excited about where we're headed. I just want to continue to encourage those of us who are here, who are beautifully interpreting the magic of the planets, that we remember to harness the power of our narrative for not only our own good and the good of our loved ones, but ultimately for the greater good of the whole. So I think we have a little bit of time if you guys want to hop up, if you have questions about the transits, your chart. Let's pop in and let's talk for a little bit. Hi, Paige. How are you?
Hi. My comment is that I'm going to read my Big Y Planetary Purpose story every day as my anchor, my new narrative.
I think that's a great idea. And I literally am sitting here at my desk looking at my own Big Y statement. I use the same template that I gave you guys. And I'm also doing the same thing, Paige. Thank you. That's a great, great, great idea. Awesome. Janine, did you have a question or a comment or a thought?
Yes, I do. Hi, nice to meet you, Karen.
You
First
too.
time in the room. And I'm really finding it so interesting and so aligned with what I've been experiencing.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's my first time. So I am curious about what it means when these channels or these gates, if they're defined in your chart. And because you called upon a couple of gates that was defined in my chart, the 29 and 30, and also I believe the 2 as well. They're all defined in my chart, so I wonder what that means, like in terms of what you were speaking of. Thank you.
I love that question. So this is one that comes up a lot, and I'm going to start, if it's all right with you, Janine, by doing sort of a big picture overview of your question, and then I'll dive in a little bit more specifically about your chart. So the way that I teach the chart, which is a little bit different than traditional human design, is I teach that we all have all of the chart. So anything in your chart that's colored in means that's a consistent theme that you're going to be exploring, oftentimes in a consistent but hopefully evolving way over the course of your life. So I call that your soul curriculum, if you will. So anything that's colored in your chart, including any of the gates that I may have talked about today, that's part of your soul curriculum. And it's a theme that you're going to be encountering and experiencing and growing from over the course of your life from birth till death. Anything that you have white or open in your chart is anything that's going to be energy that you experience from other people, through your relationships, from the world around you. That's energy that you take in from others. And it is still a place where we learn. It's still a place where we grow and we gain wisdom. But it's an energy that we experience from others and has a certain amount of variability and changeability. So for all of you who have, so let's say, the gate 2 and the gate 29, then the gate 30, the 3 gates that Janine just brought up, if you have those white on your chart, it doesn't mean you don't have them. It means that you're here to learn about those energies in a variety of different ways, usually from your relationships and sometimes from the transits. So if you have those themes open in your chart or white on your chart, and you're underneath this celestial sky that's giving you these archetypal themes, you're going to be learning about these themes this week from the planets. And you'll learn what you need to learn, and next week when the planets move, you'll go on to a different lesson. But you, Janine, with your definition, you'll still always have those lessons as part of your life path and your soul curriculum. Does that make sense?
It does. So I guess my follow-up is, does it affect me less than when the planets are engaged, like currently? If I'm asking
it actually, yeah. No, totally. It actually positions you to potentially be a guide and a source of wisdom for others, because it might not impact you as directly, but you'll see other people wrestling with it, and you'll be like, "Oh, I still got that. I know the gate too. I've been doing that work my whole life." And now you can sort of say, "Hey, guys, don't panic. This is how we do the gate too." So you might.
So in a way, because the gates are already there for me, how I would interpret it, because I've been experiencing that my whole life, then I can help others with those if I do see that.
Totally.
Right?
Totally. Yes, absolutely.
Wow. Okay. That's a great way to explain it, yeah.
Yeah, it still means, I mean, as I said, we'll all be under the influence of it. So it'll still be part of your life, because you'll be watching people go, "Oh, what they're doing. I know that. I've been there. Know that. I got that." But really, technically, if you have something that's defined in your chart and the planets transit through it, it actually doesn't affect you as much as it affects the people around you who have that part open.
That's so interesting.
So
yeah, if I hadn't asked that, I would have thought the opposite.
So here's a way to think about it. It's kind of like if you have something colored in your chart, it's already filled, so to speak. Meaning there's no room for you to take it in from anywhere else, because it's an internal theme, not an external theme. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes. 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 I gathered that from my learning so far.
Good.
So, yeah,
awesome.
the way you say it is very clear, though.
Awesome. Thank you, Janine. I appreciate you coming up here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for explaining.
My pleasure. Okay, so I want to call out unclassifiable Melissa. There we go.
Yes, it is Melissa. Hi. I had to change my name because there are so many Melissas. And I know.
Look
so
at
it's
my
me.
name.
Yes.
Good.
Hi. I just wanted to come on. I don't have a question today. I just really wanted to come on and express my extreme gratitude for you and your entire team. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone in the audience.
Hello. Awesome.
So amazing. And I love being able to realign my day, my week, just get a fresh start, a new perspective on things with you and everyone. And I just wanted to come on and just you're so on point. And I appreciate all of the great work that you've been doing for so long, and have been helping all of us in our soul, evolution and journey. So thank you. And happy early birthday.
Thank you. You made me cry, Melissa. Thank you.
Oh, look, I cry on Clubhouse all the time.
I know, right?
Yes.
But thank you. It's, as I come to the end of my 55th year, actually the end of my 56th, starting my 57th, I definitely will say that it is an incredible honor, and I can't figure out why I got given this honor, but what an incredible honor to share this information and to watch everybody light up with realization that each and every one of you is here to fulfill a unique and vital and irreplaceable role in the cosmic plan, and to continue to be able to have this as a quote-unquote job, and to be able to just watch that spark get lit when people really get, oh my gosh, I'm amazing. It's like I get to have a birthday every day. So thank you, Melissa, for sharing your gratitude. And I I have to say, because I can't tell you guys how strong, I can't emphasize strongly enough that nothing in this business would happen without Jamie and Kristen and Betsy and Cindy. This is an incredible team. This is a team who cares about you so deeply. This is a team that sends me voxes at like 9 o'clock on Friday night about issues related to how do we best serve our clients, how do we best serve our community, because I don't like the word client so much as I think we're all a community, and you all are an amazing group of people, and you all in this community are being held by these 4 women in just an incredible way, and it's a privilege to have all of these people on my team. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all for being you. And that's all of you. Thank you all for being you, because we literally are who we are. We know this from a quantum physics perspective. We literally all are who we are because of each and every one of you. So that is all I want to say. Sharon, hi. Sharon.
Oh, I was just hi, figuring out how to unmute myself.
Oh, good. Now you did. Now we're ready for you. Thank you for letting us prepare.
I did it. I'm so sorry. I'm just informing everybody. I'm an initiator, so here you go. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Darren, as always. Blowing my mind on a Monday, I guess, is your thing. So,
my job.
It's your job, and you do it so well, and I am so appreciative. So I'll be quick, because I don't want to do the academic thing where it's like I have more of a comment than a question, so I'm trying to actually have a question. But I wonder about what you were talking about before with Janine's question. I almost feel like when something is in the transits that I have, like for example, the 16 and 9 were in the nodes, and those are, I have them like defined in my nodes. I have them defined 100 times. It just feels like it gives me more wings in my sails in a way. It's almost like maybe it's, removing the potential of something that I don't have to be in those locations in the planets. So I was just wondering, what you thought about that. In a way, having your own stuff highlighted by the transits is giving you kind of, I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a manifestor. I feel like it gives me an extra push in a good direction. And my other question is actually about, as an open sacral person, with the 29 coming in, and but more generally when there are transits where they highlight something like the 29, something in the sacral. I just feel it's so tricky, and also I'm emotional, right? So it's so tricky to get clarity about when enough is enough with devotion, because there's always the conflict. You want to be devoted. I want to be devoted to my kids. I want to be devoted to my business. I want to be devoted to my clients, community. And I don't know. Sometimes it just feels like I'm not sure how to parse out the proportion of the devotion. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. So there's like 400 things I want to say now.
I'm sorry.
No. Don't be sorry. Stop apologizing. We've had this conversation how many times? Stop apologizing.
Right. I don't even mean it. I'm Israeli. I try to pretend like I'm sorry.
So here's the deal. First of all, if we look at, and this is an interesting thing to talk about, or to at least contemplate, because I think in traditional astrology, when something is conjunct your chart, it does bring this theme into focus, right? And in human design, when we look at it mechanistically, what it says is you're not going to be impacted by it, but everybody else around you will. I would certainly say, and you've all heard me say this many, many times before, interpret it in the way that feels correct for you. And certainly I would say it does have the potential to highlight and bring things into focus, because your whole world is going to be reflecting those energies, because that's the theme that the transits bring. And so while it might not impact you completely personally, it is going to impact your experience of the world, because the whole world is going to be focused, let's say, on the 16 and the 9 and the nodes. So the in reference to devotion, the 29 on an open sacral, I want to just bring into awareness that the 29 and the 30 are always paired, right? They're at cross to each other on the chart. It is, so their energy is is sort of complementary and dances around all over the chart. These two gates dance around all over the chart together. Both the gate 29 and the gate 30 are places where I call them, when I teach my students, I call these two gates part of the sequence of what I call burnout markers. So, if somebody has the 29 defined or the 30 defined in their chart, I'm always going to look at, here's a potential for burnout here. And you're absolutely correct. The burnout can be as a result of the devotion, and in particular on an open sacral, but even also on a defined sacral. Ra used to call the cross of contagion, which is the incarnation cross that contains the 29 and the 30, the incarnation cross of broken promises, which is, perfect Ra speak for that, right? Because what happens is people with this energy have a tendency to overcommit. And through that overcommitment, they deplete themselves and become burned out, and then they can't fulfill the promises that they've made, right? So that's how those themes work together. And I certainly would say, those themes bring us a lesson. And the lesson really is, first and foremost, and this is why I teach the Resiliency Keys, which, for those of you who are not familiar with the Resiliency Keys, basically if you take the whole chart and blend it up in a blender, you would come out with 9 core essential archetypes that really tie together all of the other archetypes in the chart. And certainly I would say, when it comes to the 29 and the 30, part of what's really essential here to maintain and sustain health and vitality is you have to value your right place and your right sense of and your connection to your right place in the world and your own sense of value first. Because if you're devoted as a result of trying to prove your value, right? So if you're overcommitted or over-serving or over-giving or overdoing because you're trying to prove your value or you're trying to prove your lovability, then you're really in a perfect storm for the potential for burnout. Or if you're overdoing, overcommitted, overdoing, overcommitted, saying yes when you want to say no, if you're you're doing that because you're afraid to be authentic about what you really want to do. You're afraid that if you say no, there'll be blowback. There's so many reasons why we have a tendency to overcommit. And I certainly would say having that on an open sacral is definitely a part of a soul curriculum that invites you to explore, where are the limits and the boundaries around my commitment? What am I devoted to? And how do I set healthy limits and boundaries around that so that I can sustain my devotion? Because you can't sustain, let's take it back into the context of parenting, right? If you overcommit and you're overly devoted to your kids and you burn yourself out doing everything for them and you become consequently somewhat codependent with them, right? Not only are you putting yourself at risk, you're ultimately also not giving them the gift of learning how to take care of themselves, right? Because you're always there with a plate of food and or a noodle kugel or whatever it is, whenever they need some food, right? And you're not able to teach them or allow them or create the space for them to take care of themselves. So, I don't know what the answer is. I wish I could give you the answer, but the truth of it is, it's an exploration and it's a soul curriculum. And I think it's different for everyone because we all have different capacities for doing. And sometimes the doing isn't about physically doing, it's the practice of holding the energy becomes the doing. So I think that's probably the best summary of what I can say.
I really appreciate that. I was trying to unmute myself again to say that.
I figured that out. So
yeah, the open ego, my vastly open ego, currently with the 40 defined, I have the 4037 for another whole day. I'm now thinking about the role of this in it. So it just got into further conversation internally about self-work. And the bargain.
Yeah, no bargaining. Stand in your value. Commit to the right thing and know where the limits are. That's your lesson, right?
There you go. I have one more.
Awesome. All right. On that note, you guys, I will release you to go explore your personal narrative and to rewrite it with power and deliberateness, to recite it to yourself each and every arc on the journey of the week with the intention of telling a story that's been overflowing, and you can consequently turn around and share the extra that you have with the people next to you, so that we all can arrive into a collaboration that ensures our collective expansion, our movement towards an equitable, just, peaceful, sustainable, and abundant world. It has been my honor, as always, to be here with you all. Have a really great week, and I'll talk to you all next week. Bye.